Hello and welcome back to another edition of TelescopeMan. Well, it's the day has come when we're going to try to finish the tower and to put up the antenna. We've taken a lot of videos of this from various angles and trying to give you an idea of what all is involved in setting up this Mosley 33 Classic with a 40-meter kit on it. Right now they're attaching the driven element, which is also the 40-meter element, and it's very, very long, and they've got to attach it exactly to a spot on the boom according to the manual. I believe it was 5 feet 11 inches down the boom. And just going to give you a little commentary on each of these. Discussions going on right now about the best way to get up the rocket top, the final piece of the tower, how it should be attached to get it up there the best way. And we're back now, and Mike is attaching the driven element to the boom in the exact spot. He's having a little problems because that mast that you saw there, here comes the food. Oh yeah, you got to have food or you don't get a lot of help. We had about 15 ham radio operators at the event today, and couldn't have asked for better cooperation and help from the Greenville Sabine Valley Amateur Radio Club and from the Rockwall Amateur Radio Club. So here I am. They wanted me to do the final tightening of both the little mast that holds some guy wires that you're going to see us attach in a little while. The element is so long that you actually have to guy it off of this little mast that I've got my hand on right now. And it's very difficult to tighten it and finish tightening the driven element mount when they're both there. It's just very difficult. You have to actually pull out the mast to be able to do that. Well, here's where Murphy struck. You're going to see some of this going on during the video. We discovered that when they welded the top of the tower, that there's a little small bump on the inside of, I guess, where the it melted a little bit, and it's interfering with the mast going inside that tube. So we had to do a little running around, and finally decided, after we couldn't knock it off of there with some steel, you can see Gerald, he's trying to knock it off right now, and he's not having much luck. It's not going anywhere. Anyway, we had to run out and get a really good file and then attach it to a handle. You'll see that in a little while. And actually file down that bump, which we did. So here we are attaching the guy wires. They're not actually wires, it's some Dacron and nylon type rope. We're attaching that to the little mast to hold up the 40 meters elements. And here's Gerald, our tower climber, and he's getting ready to go up the tower and putting on all of his equipment that he's going to need to be able to do that in a safe manner. And John Walker, got to say, John Walker's been my Elmer through this process and has really helped me a lot in figuring out what I need to do to get this beam up in the air. John's been a amateur radio operator since he was a young child, and many years. So pretty good operator. So he just attached some bolts to the first section and got them in there for Gerald to tighten them up. So here's that little bitty antenna that we're going to try to put up on top of the tower. And again, it's a Mosley 33 Classic with a 40-meter add-on kit on the center driven element. It's got some extra traps on it and some extra elements on the end, and actually the center element is much longer than either the reflector or the director elements. And they're just laying it out right now. They're going to put some boards underneath it to get it kind of level all the way across, and then they're going to tighten up those guy wires so that the element will be properly supported. You can see the little ring right there where they're going to attach those guy wires to that 40-meter kit that's on the driven element there with the extra big trap that you just saw a second ago. And there's Larry, and John is over on the left there. I'm looking at his shoes right now, but there we go. And let's see what they're doing now. Now they're talking about guying this and how much slack they got to take out, because they want it to be kind of horizontal and in line with the other elements when it's actually picked up. It is going to kind of bend over a little bit, but they want it to be well supported, so they're adjusting the guy wires and tightening them up to make sure that that happens. I'm going to let you watch this for just a minute while they do the guying. And again, that little bitty short mast there that you see is what's holding those guy wires and holding up that 40-meter element. And here goes Gerald. He's got the first section in. He's bringing up the gin pole with him. This is a little device that with a pulley on it that attaches to the leg of the tower, and then he can pull up sections of tower and attach them, and basically the gin pole carries all the weight, and all he has to do is maneuver it around and attach it. So let's kind of watch him as he attaches this to a leg on the tower. Of course, the gin pole is a little bit longer than one section of tower, so that he can pull it up above the little legs there where it has to fit into those legs, and then he can continue on upwards. I do have to say he was a very safe operator. He spent considerable time making sure that he was tied into the tower with his harness, so there wasn't any possibility of him falling, or if he did fall, slip and fall, he wouldn't really go anywhere, just a few feet. So here comes another section that they're getting ready to go up. Notice how they hooked it to the kind of the center of the section. And now Gerald will bring it on up and then attach it. And let's watch him do that. And again, the weight is being carried by that pole that you see on the left called the gin pole, G-I-N, gin pole. And he's fitting that one in. It went in pretty good. Not too hard. And now he's going to spend some time bolting it in, and he'll repeat this process to the top of the tower. So they're laying out the rope that we're going to be using to pull up the beam. In a little bit you're going to see them tying it to the beam. They want to be able to raise it in kind of a flat manner, but we did have to tilt it because right off camera here, you'll be able to see it in some other shots. There's a big tree, and of course that antenna is wider and longer than the clear space that we had to work with. And now they're getting the top section ready for the rotor, making sure it's going to fit first. They wanted to do that, make sure it would fit in there. And they're going to attach the rotor plate. And it had to be attached in a certain way for it to be able to fit. If you flipped it over, you know, to the other side, there wasn't enough room, so it had to be on there a certain way for the rotor to fit. And there's a little shot of Gerald. It's got that other section in there, and making sure everything is bolted down the way it should be. And up he goes. Mm-hmm. I had to do kind of a rough measurement to make sure I would clear everything, and the tower is going to be 35 feet tall. The antenna will be about 37 feet above the ground, and that clears everything on the house, including the chimney, and also clears the trees that are in the backyard there. So here's Robert, and he's attaching the rotor plate to the rotor right now. And meanwhile, John is attaching the pigtail onto the antenna, onto the driven element. And they did a good job on the pigtail too, where they took the shield on one side and made a connection in the center of the coax and made another connection. And then John's going to wrap up a little choke balun that you'll see attached to the driven element in a little while. So here they go. They're checking it now. And guess what? After we did a little filing, it went right in. Everybody was happy. And there's that magical tool. I'm going to patent that, or Gary's going to patent it. It's a file, a rounded file, good quality, put on a piece of hickory stick, so we could reach that little bump inside that tube and get rid of it. He's going to touch it up a little bit more right here and work real well. And the mast, of course, went right in there and rotated just fine. So we got rid of Murphy on that one. So here comes the final test of the mast, and they put it in there, and you can see he's turning it. Good fit, very good fit down through the middle of the little tower rocket top is what I call it. Real good fit in there, and turned quite well. You're looking at a little Array Solutions rotor cable grounding box. And what this does is it attaches to the leg of the tower, somewhere kind of near the bottom. And you can also run a copper strap down to the bottom if you'd like to. And anyway, it takes current or a nearby lightning strike or a direct strike, and it directs it down the tower instead of down the cable. It just basically grounds it out. There's some circuits in there that will ground out after a number of volts is put through that little box. So here they are fitting the rotor to the plate. Now I gotta say, we made a major error here, and I want to caution everybody, if you're putting up a tower and you're putting a rotor on like we are right here, we've got the rotor cable attached to the bottom of that rotor right there right now. We didn't check to see if they were all still connected, and or B, if they were touching the metal plate. And we tested that rotor on the ground and everything worked fine, and then when we got it up there it wouldn't turn. So we've got to go back up the tower next week and see if we've got one of those rotor cable connections on the bottom of that top piece of tower, if it's touching the plate and of course grounding out the connection. So be sure you check those wires at the bottom of the rotor very well before you actually raise it up. You can sure correct it easier on the ground than you can up at the top of the tower. So here goes the top of the tower right now, and they got a little dirt on the legs, and they got that off before they sent it up to Gerald. Here he goes. He's pulling up the mast and the rotor and the final piece of tower all at one time. Later, he's going to run that all the coax and the rotor cables down the middle of the tower. They'll be inside the tower. Did a great job on tying them off very securely so they won't flap around up there. I'm real happy with his tower work. Again, be sure you check those rotor cables at the bottom of the rotor before you bring it up to the top there. It might save you a visit from Murphy. So here he goes. He's getting those three legs in position. Some of you may have noticed that the rotor is kind of turned, the tower is kind of turned kind of sideways to the house. In other words, if you look at it, it doesn't, two of the legs do not line up with the house. Did that on purpose. Had some places on the ground where I wanted to put the guy wire anchors, so when we installed the base, I turned it so that those legs would be pointed to those three different positions that I'll show you later in the video of where those anchors are for the guy wires. And we did guy wire it about a foot or so below the rotor is where we put the guy wires. But I got to tell you, he's up there right now with no guy wires and the antenna, and virtually very little movement in the tower, as you can see. Almost none. So I feel real confident that with the guy wires up there and the condition of the tower, that it's going to be able to survive just about anything short of a tornado. So here we go. They're tying up the beam now. And they want to get it kind of balanced a little bit, you know, so it'll go up kind of flat. But as I said, we had to do a little maneuvering around that tree, which you'll see us do in a little while, where we maneuvered around that tree. And we had a lot of people to help, you know, so there was no problem there. We could keep it level, as you can see what we're doing here. We actually had to send some people on the other side of the fence to pull it in that direction, because those 40-meter elements would not clear the tree going up from that position. Later, when it's on top of the tower, there's no problem. We discussed, you know, if we ever have to take it down, we may just take the driven element off first while it's still up on the tower, and then just bring the antenna down sideways. Can't do it sideways because those elements will hit the fence or hit the house. You can see how long they are right there. They go almost to they do go to the chimney. So pretty long elements. And we're going up, and you can see we're looking at the tree and looking at the house. This is probably the most interesting part of the video, is where we actually raise the antenna up on the tower, and some of the maneuvering we had to do to get it around there. We've got some people on the other side of the fence with a rope, and they're going to pull on it and kind of swing it to the right, to your right in the video. They're doing that right now just to get it by that tree. That one limb was our problem, the very end of it. We had to get it around that to go up. Again, there's folks pulling on that rope you see to the right to kind of hold it in place. Mm-hmm. I had everybody kind of stand back away from it, just for safety's sake, just in case. And Gerald is just maneuvering the elements, trying to keep them away from the tower. He came down the tower a little bit. In a moment, he's going to go all the way back up and attach that boom to the mast about 2 feet above the top of the tower is where we're going to place it. And now you can get a look at the little wound coax that John Walker did, a little choke ballon, just to keep RF from coming down the coax. It must have worked. I do not have any RF in the shack. I've run it already with my Flex 3000, which is kind of sensitive to RF, and with no problems. And I believe John did 8 turns of coax to make that. We also sent up the rest of the coax. That's that big bundle you see on the left. That's just the rest of the coax that's going to be run over to the shack, which is on the other side of the house. So that's attached to the boom kind of loosely with a little bit of electrical tape. It's not on there very well, so that John can so that Gerald can just take it off and then send it down through the middle of the tower. Kind of an involved process getting it up there. Again, I got to say, Gerald's a pretty good tower guy, and took great care not to damage the antenna or drop anything, or and operated in a pretty safe manner. I kept this portion of the video almost in real time. I did chop out a little bit of it, but I thought this was probably, the most interesting thing to see is how we managed to get this large antenna, fairly large, up to the top of the tower. So I wanted to leave most of it in real time. You're welcome to skip ahead if you'd like and kind of get out of this section, but we're going to show you the whole process of actually getting it up to the top. And he's now as you can see, he's kind of messing with the coax. In a minute, we're going to do an antenna test, and once we got it up there, we actually put an analyzer on it to see what we had. And that test, of course, was done from its final height. And now he's just about got it there, and took out a little part there. He's now attaching the boom of the antenna to the mast is what he's doing right now. Really didn't take him that long to do all this. I'd say if I had to compress it into just work time, some of the time Gerald was on the ground kind of giving us instructions on what he wanted, and he'd climb back up again. It wasn't that far up. And I'd say it probably took 2 hours or so, 2.5 hours of actual work to get the tower up. So now here we are. He's just about got it in place where it's going to be, on the tower. He took special care of the 2 U-bolts that hold the boom on there. He even told us, he said, I'll take extra time on that because I don't want them to later, if you get some wind and they twist and the antenna winds up pointed, toward the ground. One of the elements wind up pointed toward the ground because the boom twisted on the 2 supports. So he really tightened those down, is what he said. So there we go, giving you a little shot of the whole antenna. And you can see that the driven element with that kit on it is longer, much longer, than either the reflector or the director elements. Luckily, we had a great day to do this. It was in the upper 70s and a little breezy, a little bit, not too much, and it turned out to be a great day. Well, here's Gary Carter, and he's attaching a little alpha delta lightning suppressor to the ground rod right outside my shack window. And here comes the coax down. Gerald just dropped it down. He's going to let us do an antenna check, and then he'll take it back and run it down through the tower. We're going to do an antenna check, and that's what we're doing right now. And of course, we made a little chart and put it in an Excel spreadsheet. Larry did that for me. And that way we have the readings permanently stored. So if something changes, we've got readings across the band for 10, 15, 20, and 40 meters. Boy, I gotta say, 40 meters turned out great. It was virtually below 1.9, almost all the way across the band. Mm-hmm. At the upper end of it, I was getting around 2, but 2 to 1 SWR, but I was real happy with 40 meters. And just a shot of Gerald again working up at the top of the tower, just getting things placed where they need to be. And a little grounding adapter. You're looking at, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the grounding adapter. We're getting ready to guide the tower now, and they're just double checking it. The little bracket that holds the guy wires. Make sure everything's going to work when it goes up the tower, and then we're going to send it up there and have Gerald install it. And meanwhile, they're in the little shop and they're making up the thimbles, that little metal thing you see right there, that loop where the wire goes around. There's the guy wire we're using. And then we're going to take those and tape the ends of them with electrical tape so they don't unravel and you don't get stuck by them. And then attach them to these anchors. And you can see there where there's one of the anchors right in the corner of the fence. And we were a little concerned if it was going to clear the house, and it did. Right there, you can see it going, missing the house. There's the bracket in its final position, a foot or two below the rotor. And we've got the guys going in 3 directions, a pretty good angle on 2 of the 3 guides. One of them was kind of close. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Clear skies, and see y'all later.